A lot of couples that come and see me for couples therapy want to reduce conflict in their relationship, and most of them think that conflict is not normal or that they fight too much. Now, I disagree because most conflict arises from disagreements, and two people in a relationship, often from very different backgrounds, are bound to disagree sometimes. It's inevitable because you're not the same person and you have different opinions and different thoughts and beliefs. Where I do agree, though, is that disagreements can turn into conflict quite quickly. So I've created a powerful 5-part framework that eliminates about 60% of disagreements and, more importantly, stops disagreements from turning into conflict and, even worse, the dreaded blame game. My name's Oliver and I'm a couples therapist in Los Angeles, and I love helping people grow great relationships. So if you're curious about growing great relationships too, or just want to reduce conflict in your household, do me a favor and hit subscribe, and I will keep these videos coming. The 5-part framework that I'm going to describe in this video helps you identify what it is that you're really fighting about. Because if you can figure out what the conflict or potential conflict is actually about, it's much easier to come up with solutions. Sure, you stick around because the final step of this 5-part framework is the most important one to recognize, and it's vital you know what it looks like and what it sounds like. Trust me, I'm a therapist. So this is the cliff notes of the SHARP framework, and I'll go into more detail obviously later on in the video. S stands for schedule, and it represents the specific tasks or responsibilities at the root of a conflict. You said you were going to give the baby the bath this morning. H stands for how, and it symbolizes the various ways a task can be completed and reflects disagreements on methods or process. That's not how you give the baby a bath. You have to put bubbles in there. Authority represents balance or imbalance of power, and more importantly, roles within a relationship. Am I always the one giving the baby a bath? R stands for restlessness, and it depicts the underlying anxieties or uncertainties that often fuel conflict. It's not about arguing about the thing. It's about something deeper. You don't spend any time with the baby or me because you're always working. P stands for personal, and these conflicts have gone too far. They've crossed the line from being about a topic and are now weaponized and are aimed at causing pain and hurt. Can't believe you gave the baby a bath like that. What is wrong with you? The analogy may have broken down in the last one, sorry. So if you are curious about conflict in your relationships, you might want to download my 7-day relationship rescue workbook. It's 50 pages long, it's totally free, and I'll put the link in the stand store and comments somewhere around there. So let's break down SHARP a little more. Conflict that falls under schedule section are all about tasks and who does what. So it was your turn to pick the kids up from school. No, it wasn't. It was your turn. You said you'd do it. This turns very quickly into the blame game, which we've all done, right? You said you'd do it. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I did it on Tuesday. No, it wasn't. It was Thursday. It was Wednesday. Accusations go flying. People get defensive and retaliate with another topic and another accusation. The problem here is nothing gets resolved. Now, granted, in the heat of a moment, you might not be able to think this clearly, but you are actually arguing about a task and who does what. The problem here is not your partner forgetting or you not having time. The problem is there is a lack of clarity in assigning the job. So, darling, we seem to be fighting about turning the dishwasher on. We're having a scheduling fight. That is in the past, but I think it's more important that we figure out how we're not going to repeat this in the future. Can we come up with a solution to help us remember who turns the dishwasher on? Is it a reminder on the phone? Is it a scheduling thing? Is it a post-it note? We just want more communication here, more clarity, so people are very clear on what they are doing and when. So does this sound familiar to you? Let me know in the comments below if this type of conflict happens in your relationship. I would love to hear from you. H in the SHARP framework is about how we do things, and it's technically called a process conflict, which is a disagreement in the way that we do things. That is not how we give the baby a bath, or that's not how we stack the dishwasher. You're disagreeing on how something is done. And again, this can go quickly into the blame game in which one person is right and the other person is wrong. The way you do things is wrong, and therefore I'm right, and we get defensive and accusations start flying again. So again, this is a reminder that you come from very different backgrounds with different beliefs, different parents, sometimes entirely different cultures. So you don't always see eye to eye on the right way of doing things or how things are done. You couldn't possibly agree on everything. The issue is not your partner being right or wrong. The issue is, in our relationship, How are we going to do this? Darling, I think we're having a how fight that weird English therapist on YouTube was talking about. Can we talk about how we are going to stack the dishwasher moving forward? I can gladly explain why I like my method if you're open to hearing about it. And I'd love to know why you put them in so haphazardly. Don't say that. Can we come up with a compromise, a middle ground, or can you tolerate things being done differently without taking offense to it? The A in SHARP stands for authority, and it's about the roles we get stuck in. Roles in relationships get worked out slowly and most often unconsciously over time. So I might end up being the one that does the groceries on the way home, and you might be the one that ends up cooking dinner. It's a habit, but it also can turn into a role. If I like doing the shopping and you're okay doing the cooking, this is probably not going to be an issue in your relationship. But disagreements and conflict occur when we realize that actually we're not happy doing the groceries all the time or with the role that you've been stuck in and you want to change it. I always imagine that movie star who's in the Marvel movies who secretly wants to do, I don't know, Shakespeare, but he's typecast all the time as a superhero and never gets to do anything different. There's going to be one cranky actor. And the same sort of thing is true in relationships when you're stuck in a role or typecast. There's nothing wrong with wanting to change roles or not always wanting to do the cooking. But when we're not aware that this is what is making us irritable and cranky, then we get into, you guessed it, the blame game. You never do the cooking. I always do the groceries. The problem is not your partner always doing this or you never doing that. The problem is that you would like to change roles that you've been stuck in and that you continue to play. Darling, I noticed that I'm doing a lot of the cooking and actually some nights I'd rather not. What's the solution here so that I don't have to do the cooking all the time? The R in the SHARP framework is for arguments that come out of this restless anxiety. We can't quite put a finger on what's going on, so we get irritable and discontent, but we know something's off and it's probably our partner's fault. Then things get heated and we're yelling at each other and, we're back into conflict. Not a lot of people realize that anxiety is a massive driver for conflict in your relationships. It's why that casual remark from your loved one about going out with friends on a Friday night turns into a full-blown argument. This one's a bit more complicated to explain, so let me start with a simple example. I get horribly anxious around flying and travel. I'm that weirdo that wants to be at the airport 3 hours before the plane leaves. And if you are the sort of person that doesn't mind rolling up last minute, and I end up being in a really long line in security at LAX, I am going to be irritable, I'm going to be cranky, and you probably best not speak to me until I'm sat on the plane. I'm likely to get into the blame game at this point and blame you for me being late and stuck in a security line. But what's going on is that I'm anxious. But really, this layer of conflict is about a deeper anxiety and requires a lot of self-reflection on your part to see if you're really angry that they're going out with their friends again, or is there actually some anxiety and fear that you're not spending enough time together or you're drifting apart. So even more challenging than the self-reflection part is that you then need to talk about those deeper feelings. You need to tell your partner what's really bothering, not just the surface layer irritation or blame. Darling, I know I was cranky with you when you told me you were going out with your friends again this weekend, but I think actually I'm worried that we're drifting apart and I don't feel close to you. Can we schedule some time together this week to reconnect? Before I tell you the most important or most damaging part of the SHARP model, I want to remind you to either download the 7-day relationship rescue PDF from the Stan store or the link somewhere around there, or you could take my relationship style conflict quiz, which will tell you more about your tendencies in fighting with your partner. Because once you know what your tendencies are, it's much easier to change them and get your relationship back on track. This fifth type of conflict is personal. And it might start with small disagreements at any of the other stages, but it escalates into attacks on someone's character and self-worth. So it's not just about being right or wrong anymore. It's become hurtful with insults that linger and damage trust and intimacy. It's really about making the other person feel bad. Recognizing that a conflict has got to the personal level or frequently gets to the personal level as soon as possible is key, keeping your relationship healthy and resilient. Couples often wait 6 years before they come to therapy, and if it's been 6 years of this personal layer of conflict, it's pretty hard to get back on track. If you recognize that you are in the personal zone of conflict, just stop. There is literally no rational conversation happening, so take a break, Try to work out what it is that you're really fighting over. Most often it's one of the things in the SHARP framework. And then talk about it rationally when you're both calm. All right, so here's that SHARP framework again, and please hit follow and subscribe if you found this useful. I will keep these videos coming. I would love to be able to share all of the sort of things that I share with couples in my private practice with anyone who wants them, and I hope you find them useful.